already knew when we came back that we was going back. So I said to myself, I'm like, oh my.
And this was in your 17th year.
This was in my 17th year.
Okay.
So I'm thinking we already got to go back because we started training to go back. So listen, it started my 16th. So from my 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th year, my mind was in combat mode. Okay. You go to Iraq for a year, you come back, but you're training to go back. So your mind is already in combat mode. It was a mess. It was a mess. And then, when the programs are not like they are now. Now they have a much better program. I mean, when we came back, the first thing they asked us when we got off the plane, do you need to talk to somebody? No, I don't need to talk to somebody. I need to go home, get me a beer, and have some sex. I'm just being real. I've been gone for a year.
Right.
So we figure, if I tell them something wrong with me, or if I tell them I got to stop and talk, they're going to hold me up from going to see my family. So we implemented something for them to say, hey, you need to ask people 30, 60, and 90 days. How are you doing? Because once you start reintegrating back with the family, that's when you start seeing issues.
What is that? What is that 30, 60, 90 days? What is that?
Okay. When you get back, you got to be reintegrated with your family. So the first 30 days, you excited to be home with your family. Mm-hmm. You excited all this. Now, here come the 60 days. Now we got to get to, the wife was paying all the bills or the husband was paying all the bills. They had everything. So now it's like, hey, I got to reintegrate this person back into the family, and that's during that 60 days, you can find out, okay, something ain't right here. We just arguing just a little bit too much. He's just drinking just a little bit too much. He's numb. He's not there. He's not present.
Right.
Now, in that 90 days, it's like, okay, what are we going to do now? It's time for help. It's time for counseling. It's time for something. So it gives you a period of time to recognize something is wrong because the first couple of days, you still in honeymoon. You back home.
Right. That wasn't there for, I don't remember that being there because I went in 04.
Okay.
And then I went back in 06.
Oh,
and
then
That's
what I'm saying. It wasn't there.
Right. I went Fort Hood. So I came over there and we went to Kuwait the first time. And then we convoyed all out there. Then I was I was different fobs.
Yes, sir.
Because I was a food service specialist, so
okay.
I was a cook.
Okay.
So some fobs for operating bases didn't have dining facilities, and them men and women, man, you only could get so far with the MRE.
Correct.
Correct. So we would have to go, because over there we were only control of rations. Like the truck would come in, we would count the rations, stock the rations, but they had civilians for cooks.
Correct. Okay.
So hey, who wants to go out on special detail? All right.
Yeah. Correct. It was special on it.
Absolutely.
Lord. Yes,
so I didn't know anything about, because once I had read up and I got my 5. I had got my sergeant because I wanted to go warrant officer. I did at some point had some behavioral issues.
Yeah.
I had, lost the rank, but I finally got my 5 and I was like, okay, I can go warrant. But it was after that second one, I was like, man, I'm ready. I don't want to go. I don't want to go back. So I went to Korea. So I had no time to process anything. When I went to Korea for a year and over there in Asia, it was just partying, working in the DFAC, drinking, shopping. Yep. So I never heard of 30, 60, 90.
Correct.
Is that something that was that implemented when you were there?
No. I don't know if they implemented it. I really don't know. But you know how they do surveys?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we came out of the survey with. Now, I don't know. I'm sure they have some type of program like that now. It might not be called 30, 60, 90, but it's probably phases, because you have to, when a veteran comes back, and especially they have little kids and stuff like that, the little kids don't know something wrong with daddy. So if dad got PTSD and the child want to run up and jump on their father, they want to, play. They don't understand something is wrong with dad.
Right.
They don't understand something is wrong with mom. So you're processing that. Now you got finances involved. Now you still got to go to work. Now it's just so much that when we got off that plane, we expected to be integrated like that.
Right. Of course. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And,
yes.
And it wasn't like that. So I know for a fact, because I worked for the Army for 12 years, once I got out. And that's another thing. I left the Army and went to work for the Army for 12 years. So my therapist said I didn't give my brain time to heal. My brain went straight from war to working for the government. So in my mind, I'm still in the military.
Right.
Because we did the same thing. And I tell you what, I drove on base one day at Fort Eustis, and they shot that cannon. Man, I lost it. Man, I lost it. I like, good God from Zion, what is going on here? So
and the cannons are loud.
The cannons are loud. So it was like, you know, it was rough. It was rough. I mean, and I hid mines when I did retire, because I put in my retirement papers in Iraq. I was actually in Iraq I had my paperwork already set before I left, and when my year hit, I gave my paperwork. Put my paperwork in, and it went through. It went through because I had a chance to retire. I had a chance to leave Iraq and get myself together, but my commander wouldn't let me.
Yeah, I've been there.
My first sergeant was like, let me tell you something. You need to let Hines go. He's about to retire. His paperwork is approved. Let him go. We got this. Because we was in the green zone. But people think you're safe in the green zone. You're not safe in the green zone. You get bombed every day.
Every day. Yep.
we got bombed every day, to the fact where you hear incoming and you just roll over in your bed and like, okay, Lord, is this the day? That ain't normal.
Right.
That's normal.
Not. And hey, we had a couple. We were so fortunate that even if we was in the green zone before coming out, because we would go outside of the towers and everything, and we had a couple duds. If they would have went off, they were so close to the motor pool.
Correct.
It would have took everything out.
Correct. And see, and that's when you get to the point where you're not playing games with it, but you kind of laughing and like, man, that could. So it's like your mind is thinking, wow, man, I could have just died, but now I can't show that. You know, because I worked in where I worked at, I was a signal soldier, but as you notice, when you went to war, everybody, whatever your main job was, whatever they needed you for, you was going to do that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was in charge of the badging office for everybody that came into the Iraq. I mean, that came into the green zone. So when they had that first sitting of the Iraqi government, I was in that building.
Wow.
I badged every person that came into that green zone, that new government. I had every person had to come to my office and put their fingerprint on that scanner in order for them to get a badge. And we used to always say, well, this is the day we're going to get bombed, y'all, because they was bringing so many other important people there.
Right.
So we sitting here playing games in our minds, you know, like, bro, this might be the day.
Yes.
Because when they, see, the thing is, when they say they bringing in high important people, you already getting the security alerts. So you already know everything is heightened. So you already know what could possibly happen. So you talking about being on guard?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Head on a swivel, looking up and down, startled by every little thing. So it is something that I'm not gonna say I'm happy it happened or wish it never happened, because this was my destiny. You know, this was my destiny.
I appreciate you saying that, because I get a lot of those type of questions too. Like, do you regret a lot of things that happen in your life? And I have to take inventory and look, man, some things, it's just what it was. It was my fate. And I had to deal with it.
Correct.
And I thank God for where I am, because it made me the man I am today. It made me the person I am today. With that being said, and I feel like you share my sentiment. How did that? So 2 tours right when you were about to retire.
Right when I was about to retire.
Understanding where you were in an instant. In an instant, we could not be here today.
Correct.
Speaking with you, speaking to the listeners and the viewers, and being blessed and being able to give back and do what we do in service. How did that transition over to, okay, now I'm back home? What was how did you learn about PTSD? Because for me, I didn't know anything about it.
Correct.
It was the opposite for me. My commander, because I went to an ADA unit, which was Air Defense Artillery.
I was in there too.
Only thing that most of my unit only knew stateside Korea.
Okay.
Some of them didn't see combat. So me coming in there as a combat veteran and well, soldier at the time, and when things started to hit the fan, they didn't really understand what's going on with Sergeant Fields.
Right, 0 to 100.
Right, very fast, because there was no time to process anything.
Correct.
I hit 2 tours, first tour 04, re-up in 05, come back in 06, so 26 months total in theater. Go to Korea, I'm partying, having fun, all that, come back home stateside, dum, dum, dum.
Yes, sir.
So,
yes, sir.
Still trying to numb with sex, drugs, whatever, cars, money, whatever the case may be, because my mental health and sometimes my addiction, I can't differentiate between the two.
Okay.
And they share similar symptoms and they overlap.
Okay.
I didn't know what PTSD was.
Correct.
I knew that I was mad. I had some childhood trauma. I had some trauma in the military, lost some folks. I was just mad. I didn't understand what PTSD was.
Correct.
How did you learn about post-traumatic stress disorder? When was it discovered for you or learned for you or taught to you? Or how did you come to like, oh, okay, Vernard, it might be, I put it to you like this. Was anything unmanageable at one point where you like, okay, there's something that I need to go get checked out here?
Well, you know, growing up, I had an uncle who was in Vietnam. And when he came home, it wasn't PTSD. It was shell shock. He was shell shocked. You know, something was wrong with him. He was always the uncle that everybody told, he was like an uncle that everybody told, go get in the corner. Shut up. Man, you just talking. Why you talking all the time? Why you go sit down. Go do this. When you go into the VA. So I was like, I'm not going to be labeled that way. Oh, no. So I'm going to try my best to manage this thing any kind of way. Oh, no, you're not going to look at me different. That's what I was trying to do, not to be looked at different. So I did go to and speak to a doctor, and the doctor told me I had adjustment disorder.
What's that?
That's what I want to know. I said, I've been adjusting all my life. What do you mean I got to adjust? So basically what they were saying was leaving the military, coming out into civilian world, I had a problem adjusting. I said, ma'am, so I got frustrated. I said, that's one of the biggest craps. I said, not a problem. So I did like so many other veterans did. I ain't going back talking to nobody.
Right.
I went and talked. You told me I got, okay. But doing all that, my marriage falling apart. You know what I'm saying? Doing all that. I moved back home to childhood issues that I didn't have to face while I was away.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
so now
I do.
I'm back home. So now I'm drinking this alcohol that's loving me. You know what I'm saying? Just talking to me, that's telling me, hey, don't worry about it. It's just you and me. You can tell me whatever you want. Just keep drinking me. You know what I'm saying? So
I got you. I
got you. So the more I'm drinking, the more I feel I'm functioning.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then what I try to say, I had to function because I had a family. I just moved from Lawton, Oklahoma to Virginia where the housing went up. I went from a brand new house that was $978 a month to a new house in Virginia where the mortgage was $2,400 a month. So now I'm struggling trying to find a job, trying to function in this family, trying to function with little kids who are infants, who was like 3 and 5. So now I'm dealing with kids screaming. I'm dealing with uprooting my family 6 months and moving back home, trying to find a place. Everybody thinking I'm coming home to be the same person I was when I left. It was chaotic. Okay, until one day I remarried. Thank God for my wife. She never served in the military. She never knew anything about the military, so she just knew I'm gonna love this man. I heard my 12-year-old daughter say, I'm scared of my father. I heard her say that, and that cut me to a core. I said, you know what? It is time for me to go and find out what's wrong with me. Not that I was violent, but I was 0 to 100.
Right.
You couldn't really ask me a question. They couldn't be kids. They couldn't jump on their father. Somebody always had to tell them, relax, just be quiet. You don't want to upset your dad. So it's like, my goodness, I can't be a child. So it got to the point where I did go to the doctor, and they was trying to explain PTSD. But the only thing I heard, Derek, was the S, the T, and the D. I didn't know what PTSD was. I told this man, I ain't got no STD. I didn't know what PTSD. I didn't know what PTSD. Derek, I ain't know.
You completely switched the order.
Look, I don't know about no PTSD. I know about the STD, but I don't know about the PTSD. So I was like, man, I don't. So he had to break everything down to me, but it still wasn't as prevalent as it is now.
Right, correct.
It was just like, okay, you got PTSD, this we gonna do, da 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 da. You're gonna go to these classes, you can go to these groups, we're gonna give you some medication. But it still wasn't right. So what I did was I knew I had to go and talk to somebody else who I felt like trusted me. So I went to the vet center, and I called her name, Miss Paula Tisdale. She is a lifesaver. She actually brought me and my wife in, showed a 3D model of my brain, and it was like a parts you can just, you can take out. It's a 3D model.
Right.
And she showed my wife the medulla oblongata that was injured. She said, your husband has an injury. Derek, the first time I heard that lady said, I have an injury to my brain, it clicked. Now I don't feel like I'm broken. Now I don't feel like I'm different. Now I don't feel like, no, I have an injury.
What do you mean it clicked? What do you mean it clicked?
It clicked in me the way she was breaking it down. She understood, and she explained to my family and to my wife. Well, she explained to my wife what I couldn't explain. I couldn't explain that I had an injury because no one ever said it was an injury. Everybody's always, they call it traumatic brain injury,
right?
But that's not what I had. I had PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Mm-hmm. So when you say disorder, that means I'm out of order.
Right.
What is wrong with me? So it was the wording that she used. When she said that, it clicked for me. I'm not going to say right then, but it started clicking for me that, wow, okay. So the more I started going to her, the more she started breaking it down, the more she started bringing in my kids and explaining to them the stuff that I couldn't explain. Because I was trying to say it. But the wording she put to it, they understood it, and it made our whole life, our family, so much better because they saw their father in a different light. Because first of all, as you know, when a person is suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, they are withdrawn.
Yes.
They can be withdrawn. They can be numb. They can be in a place, but not present.
Not present, right.
So not being present, that made my wife feel like, well, maybe he don't love me no more. You know what I'm saying? Well, maybe he don't want to be with me. And it made my kids like, well, what am I doing that my father don't want to be around me? So it's not that. So it's what it made it made my other family feel like something that I was being withdrawn from them. But her explaining that made everybody feel like, okay, it's not me, it's the injury. So now let's treat the injury. And that's what we started doing.
Was that, for me, I know it took a long time to, okay, I need help. I went through a lot of losing my family, breaking my family up, just doing wrong. I was violent. And I had to make amends for that. And I thank God that me and my kid's mom are at a better place today.
Good.
Still reconciling the relationship with my daughter.
Okay.
But that's going to take time, and I trust God for that.
Correct.
It was hard for me. I like how you know her name. I got 5 because I've been in psychiatric units. I've been in detox. I've been in residential treatment facilities when it comes to addiction. And I always say I have a handful that I know that make a difference because they cared.
Right.
They showed that humility and that humanity and looked at me like, okay, Derek, I see you as a person. I don't see you as a number. I'm not looking at my clock or my watch. I don't need a pay. I'm not here just for a paycheck. I'm here because this is life and death for you. And I want to see you overcome. I want to see you recover. I want to see you thrive. And it took a long time for me to trust. It took a long time.
I still got a trust issue.
Yeah, same. I still do, but they're getting better. Right. But as far as the psychiatric care, or it was like, because something like, hey, okay, let's go in today. Okay, we got 30 minutes. All right. You want to try this new medication? I'm like, no, I just want to cry. Can I just cry? I'm angry. And I just want to shake something. I want to hit something. Can we, like you said, there's something out of order, because you're telling me I have PTSD.
Correct.
So there's something out of order. I don't know what that is. All I feel is these emotions that I can't process, that I haven't processed for years.
Correct.
For me, it's drugs, sex, money, worldly things. And what do? Well, time is up. Okay. All right. Are you coming back? Nope.
Nope.
Nope. I'm not, because like you, I'm gonna manage it the best way I can.
That's right.
And I managed it for a long time with a little bit of smoking weed, a little bit of fornication, a little bit of women, a little bit of, I got money. I still have a nice place. I'm an involved father in making amends the best way that I possibly can. But still, I was ruined on the inside. I was still had that injury that I didn't even know was an injury to my brain.
But you know what, Derek? We also had another stigma. Black men.
Well,
we ain't going to seek no help.
No.
We've been trained all right. Be strong. Be strong. Boy, shut up. You ain't supposed to cry. Then you go in the military. What you supposed to do? It's supposed to be hard.
Yes.
You can't go to sick call. What you going to sick call for? Give him some Motrin, put him back out there.
Yep, mission first.
So, you know, so showing weakness was not in our DNA. And as African Americans, you know, therapy was a cuss word. Because first of all, you ain't telling nobody what's going on in this family.
Yeah, it was taboo. Very taboo. Very hush hush. Yes. What's in the house stays in the house. Well, absolutely.
Years. So, you know, so we broke that. And once we broke that, it's like, I don't care who knows that I'm in therapy. I don't care who knows I have PTSD. Because first of all, I'm going to tell it.
Right.
Because look, Miss Tisdale, she's still my therapist to this day. And people ask me, man, you got PTSD, but you don't look like you have PTSD. I said, because I have resources. I said, when I didn't have resources, I looked just like I didn't have PTSD, because I'm drinking, getting speeding tickets, getting divorced. But now I got resources. I shouldn't look like it.
I've had some people tell me that all the time. Like, you don't look like you have PTSD. You don't look like you had a drug use problem. Like,
you're in recovery.
I have recovery, and I have resources
that
I'm using.
Thank you. You should have caught me a couple of years ago. Boy, I was more than a couple of years ago, but I still do group therapy twice a month. We have a Zoom call. It's 5 of us and Miss Tisdale, and we just go about, hey, what's going on in your life? But see, I use Miss Tisdale for life, because what I learned, bro, PTSD don't care about life, and life don't care about PTSD. They are going to collide. COVID? Oh, I need a therapist. Because now a lot of people didn't survive COVID. Not that they died, their marriages died. Because now you stuck with somebody you really don't want to, you know, I'm stuck with you all day in the house. I really don't like you. You know what I'm saying? So I had to call Miss Tisdale and be like, hey, Miss Tisdale, because I had just quit my job from the government, and 6 months later, I was going to go comedy full time. 6 months later, COVID hit. So now I'm stuck in the house. My wife had a routine. I didn't. I said, Miss Tisdale, I'm losing my mind. I think something's going on. I'm not connecting with my wife. She said, well, I can't tell you how to connect with your wife. That's something you're going to have to find out. And I'm glad she did that.
I like that.
So we started doing car videos. And that connected with us, and we started doing videos. So if you go to my YouTube page, I got a number of videos that we did that connected us during that time. Good. So, you know, and when my daughter went to college, PTSD heightened. She went from COVID in the house, what I can control every day, to now I don't have control. She's going to college. Right. So I had to Miss Tisdale. I need some help. She about to go to college. I don't know what to do. She gave me the best advice. When your daughter called you the first time with a problem, the way you react is the way she's going to think every time she has to call you about a problem.
That's good.
Boy.
That's good.
Boy. Because you know, 0 to 100.
0 to 100 real quick.
So she called with a problem now. I just sit back and, okay, so what? So now, what are you going to do about it? Or what do you think you should do about it? Or would you like for me resources that I had from my therapist instead of just going straight off the bat? So it's just a lot of things. And I don't care what folks say about me no more. I don't care what folks think about me because I'm surviving. My family, we're doing good. You know, I think I still got one son that's probably, the war and everything kind of ruined the little relationships that we had, because it affected the kids too.
Yes, it does.
It affected them. I mean, when my son graduated from high school, he said, you don't know how it is to go to school every day and your father's at war, not know if he's coming home again. I never thought about that.
Yeah, absolutely never thought about that.
I never thought about that. So it was a lot for everybody, and the resources are now good, but when we first came out, it wasn't.
Yeah. They weren't there. I'm glad that they're implementing them now. Yes. They're understanding through research and through us veterans advocating, and people with PTSD, because I let people know when I go speak, PTSD is just not exclusively for the military.
Come on,
it is not. It's just not. Our first responders, the people that's on the front lines every day, and just everyday common people can experience post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's just, we just want to say that and wanted to get that out there. It's just not exclusively for military personnel. It's just,
Derek, let me tell you something. I went to a mental health symposium and I got the best word I have ever heard. Well, best saying. If you have a brain, you have had trauma.
Yes. And yes, in some form, shape of capacity you have.
If you have a brain, you have had trauma.
And I thank you for saying that, because I've had discussions, sometimes irrational, sometimes rational, sometimes in intellectual conversations. Because for me, I always let people know I come from both sides of the coin, where it's the psychiatric mental health conditions, and then you have addiction, and then parentheses for me, substance use, because there's different addictions. You have your substance use addiction, and you have your processes addictions, like gambling or behavior addictions, like eating, pornography, stuff. Exactly.
My favorite show, 600-Pound Life. I look at it because it always go back to trauma started them. It always leads back to trauma.
Thank you. And I have discussions with one of the fellowships that I attend, and we always disagree. We always agree to disagree. I say, listen, and I've talked to my wife as a therapist as well. She's a rec therapist. And I was like, listen, as a child, yes, I may be predisposed to a gene that is innate in me that could get turned on at any time with addiction, could get stimulated at any time. But at the same time, if I am a child, if I am 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, and there is an adult, a parent figure, a guardian, mom and dad, and I experience trauma in some way due to the lack of responsibility from that adult, including myself, because I know I've caused trauma to my children.
Correct. Me too.
How can you hold, if that trauma triggers a mental health disorder or an addiction disorder, how in this can that child be culpable and be like, I take everything on me and there was no such thing as trauma? I don't understand. That's where we disagree. I don't understand that type of thinking. It's like, no, that child can't be responsible for that adult traumatizing them. So if something is triggered in a disorder or in a mental health disorder or a substance use disorder or an addiction disorder, as they grow up, yes, as they start reaching early adulthood and understanding consequences, yes. If some things are self-inflicted, sure. The things that I need to take accountability for, that I add to my not using my resources, or I need to self-medicate, sure. I need to take accountability, culpability, and amend that. But if there is trauma because of an adult that was in my life that caused it to me as a child, I'm not blaming them. But what I am doing is I had trauma.
Yes. Please acknowledge that. Can I say something? And this is going to get deep.
Yes, please do.
It's going to get deep right here. Okay. I got circumcised at about 6 or 7 years old. I remember it just like I'm talking to you. Now, my mom worked at the hospital. Same hospital. My aunt worked at the hospital. My grandmother worked at the hospital. Everybody told me it won't gonna hurt, all this other good stuff. So you lied to me. Okay? Yeah. So now, every time it was time for me, after I got healed and everything, every time it was time for me to go back to the hospital to even pick them up or drop them off, there was trauma that they're lying to me, and they taking me to the hospital for something else. They taking me to the hospital. I mean, this was from 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 to when I broke my wrist and went to the hospital. I was terrified because people always say this is not going to hurt. It was the worst pain. They had to snap my wrist back in place. Okay. Ooh. So now, if my kids are going to the hospital and it might hurt, I let them know this is going to hurt.
Yes.
But you're going to be okay. I hurt my shoulder playing football in high school, and I did not go to the doctor for a whole year till my shoulder kept popping out of socket because I was terrified of going to a hospital because of the trauma I felt at 7 or 6 or 7 years old. To like hospitals, I said, these folks lied to me. So now every time it was time for me to go to the hospital, I was terrified. Till no more than my grandson, when he turned 2, he had a birthday party. Okay, they was blowing up balloons. He was doing real good. They was blowing up balloons. The balloon popped. The rest of the party, he had his hands on his ears the whole time. Now, we took him outside. The hands came off. We took him back inside. His hands went on. We took him to the front. Hands came down. We took him back inside. Hands went back. That even though that was his little trauma, like something in that room scared me. So we had to work through it the rest of the time to get him to say, understand it's okay. So it's just like, man, once you learn trauma, and that's why I call it processing traumatic situations differently. I can't sit up here and tell you, Derek, I went through the same thing you went to. We went to war the same time twice. Why are you acting like that? I can't tell you that.
I appreciate that, though. I appreciate that honesty.
Yeah. Can't tell you that. We got to sit back and say, you got people that grew up in the same house, brothers and sisters. And they'll tell something, well, I felt different. Oh, no, you didn't. How you going to tell me how I felt? I'm not, everything ain't true. Everything ain't. But once we acknowledge, okay, this is how you felt. Now let's talk about the reality of it. That's the key. We got to get to the reality of it. Then you figure, okay, yeah, I was wrong in the department. It wasn't like that. Or you're right. I should have done X, Y, Z. So we got to just stop trying to make folks feel like, okay, my trauma is bigger than yours. If your trauma is affecting you to live a life that is pleasing to God and where you are doing what you are born to do, then you need to address it.
I'm with that 100%. And there may be also, you might not get the apology that you think you need or ought to get.
Yep.
So be okay with that too. Yep. I had to learn that in therapy as well. And one of my therapists, Miss Tanya, like, Dick, you may not ever get that apology.
Yep. That's right.
I was like,
a long time to remember that. It took me a long time to get over that one. Yep.
Man, I've heard, there's been so much knowledge given to me and insight. One of the texts that she was going to school. She was a tech at the time, but she was going to school to become a counselor. I was doing a CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and okay. I was coming out of there, and she was like, Derek, come here. I was like, yes, Miss Tiffany. She was like, what's wrong? I'm like, I'm mad at my dad. He hurt me. She pulled me close and said, you've hurt people too. Okay.
Oh my God. That's a nugget.
Yeah. I couldn't say nothing. I was speechless. I had to go sit.
Oh my God.
And meditate for the rest of the day on how I've hurt people too.
Oh my God.
I was like, yeah, she is so right.
And same forgiveness you would want somebody to give you.
I have to give it to my dad, anyone who's hurt me. Absolutely 100%.
Brother, you said a mouthful right there, because me and my mom had lied to me about who my father was until I was 38. I finally figure out that the man who I thought was not. It took me some time to forgive her, because once I became a parent, I saw some of the things I took my kids through.
Yes.
And it was like, whoo. So if I want them to extend grace to me and forgive me, then why can't I forgive her once I hear her story of what happened to her? So it's like,
right.
We need to just be. I ain't went to school that long, so I can't pronounce that word, but it's a big word. Sympathetic. We need to be sympathetic to someone else's journey. Period, point blank.
Yes, just extend that grace. I'm the same way. It took a while for me to forgive my dad, but once I learned, we had our paths were similar. His trauma that he faced that wasn't addressed, because my dad is what's my dad about? He just turned 75, so he grew up in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So not only does he have the childhood trauma, he has the extension of racism that is very prevalent, and then the military. Yep. So I was like, okay, I get it, Dad. I get it. Now that I know your story, I understand. It doesn't condone the behavior.
Correct.
But I get it. I understand. I understand. Absolutely.
But then we got to get to the point where I had to realize that I'm not going to get from my mom what I needed at 15, 16, and 17. I'm 55 years old now. Okay? That 15, 16, and 17-year-old kid, my therapist set me on the chair and took me back till when I was 12 years old. And she told me, you no longer have to protect the little 12-year-old boy, because he's 55 now. So a lot of stuff I was doing, I was trying to protect what happened to me as a child. And it's like, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to protect it. I am 55 years old. Bring him along with me. Bring him. I mean, it was so simple because she asked me, when did you first had or felt you had trauma? I didn't even think about the circumcised. I told him I was 12 years old when my mom and the man who adopted me and gave me his last name, I thought that was my father, when they separated and got divorced. I felt like my life was turned upside down. So she took me back to that moment, and bro, you talking about doing the work, and that's what a lot of people don't want to go to therapy for, because you got to do the work.
Absolutely.
You're going to bring up some stuff.
Ooh.
But I look at it like this. If your stomach is sick and you walk around all day, you're going to be in pain. But you get better once you throw it up.
I want to get to the comedy part, but you have, damn, you just dropped the bomb on me there too, because taking that 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old boy, and because I always survived or thrived, or that's what we do. We especially like the way we grow up, we survive that chaos. We grow into the military, or we go into the world and we survive that chaos. And now we're surviving our mental health, and we're surviving addiction, and we're surviving all these things. And I don't have to protect that little boy or little girl anymore. I can bring that child, that little kid with me now.
That's right.
That's crazy. I never thought about that.
You can bring him along and experience the good things that's going forward.
Because I always tell my wife sometimes, and I have to still protect myself. And now I see why I do that, because that's funny that you say that the trauma. That's a great question. When did you? And because trauma. When did you at first experience trauma? When did you know?
Correct.
And I knew I could go back and like, okay,
right.
When I know the point in time where it hit and
right.
It just changed
Mm-hmm.
moving forward as a kid. That is very insightful. Very insightful. Yeah. But you got to do the work. That is true.
To do the work.
You have to want to do the work. Woo-hoo. People ask me when I every time I go speak to hospitals and institutions, I go be of service. Derek, what changed? I said my mindset. Because when you in the institutions, the work or the curriculum, it's recycled. It's pretty much the same material that they teach you, just recycled and packaged a little differently, but it's the same. What changes is your mindset. Are you going to go in here and do the work? So how did moving forward into the comedy, because I love comedy.
Yeah.
I love comedy. I'm a fan of comedy. We got about 20 minutes and I really want to. You mentioned you and your wife had to reconnect and y'all reconnected to the videos together. But how did comedy start before that? How did Vernard, the laugh therapist, Hines, come about in the midst of that stableness, that restoration to the injured mind?
Right.
How the disorder, how getting that back in order? How did comedy come from that?
Okay. I have always been comedy. At 12, 13, and 14 years old, I was an unsupervised child because I was listening to Richard Pryor albums. I knew Richard Pryor albums back and forth. I was always quick with it in school. When we played the dozens, I was the best at it. Okay, I was always the barbecue comedian. You take me to a barbecue in the military, you give me a few drinks. Oh, I'm hilarious. But I never had that confidence to get on stage. I never had that confidence to do any of that. But I knew people in the military would tell me, "Hey man, why you ain't doing the comedy, man? Why you in XYZ?" I never felt, I could. So I'm doing jokes. I'm being funny. And one day, I was leaving Lawton. I was retiring when I was leaving. And the lady in my church cornered me and she said, "Let me tell you something. When you get to Virginia, you need to pursue comedy." And I think she said, "That's the word of the Lord." This, because she was like a prophetess in our church. Right. She was like, "This was what God is telling me to tell you." And I'm like, "Lord have mercy. Okay. This is a true story." So I get back to Virginia. I go to a church. Now, in all this, my mind, I'm still doing the PTSD stuff. I'm still not medicated. I'm still not seeing a therapist or nothing. But when I was leaving the military, comedy gave me something to look forward to. Right. Because I had nothing else to look forward to. I'm got to go on interviews now. I got to do a resume. I got to, that was my calming mechanism, was the comedy. So I was in the church, and I visited a church, a pastor I knew, and I went twice. And on the second time, it was doing Valentine's. He said, "We're not going to get, I asked God to show me a sign. And the pastor said, "We're not going to get a comedian to come in for Valentine, for our couples night. We're going to find a comedian in the church." This is no lie. I looked up. I said, "You funny, God. You are funny.
Absolutely.
You are funny," because I was running. So I had to go sign up. I was the only one that signed up. So I had to go do a little 10-minute routine for them. I didn't know nothing about comedy in the church. I didn't know nothing about timing, all that good stuff. So I did it. I was good because I did my first routine. So my first name was Reverend Peanut Butter and Jelly. So that name,
Say that again.
My first name, stage name, was Reverend Peanut Butter and Jelly. What? You see how you laughed at that right there?
Yeah, because I had to ask, like, what?
That's when I knew it was time for me to get a new name. So I was doing comedy. I was doing comedy as Reverend Peanut Butter and Jelly. I wasn't doing that. I was just acting like a fool. That's what it really was. So I was talking to a friend of mine when I wanted to get serious, and he was like, "Man, you need to change his name." I said, "Yeah, man." I said, "But I don't know what to change it to." So we brainstormed. He said, "Well, you've been through a lot, man. So what really kept you from going over the edge?" I said, "Laughter and a therapist." Mm-hmm. He said, "Won't you call yourself the laugh therapist?" It was just that easy.
That is amazing.
And then what I did was a lady in my job, because I wanted to try to get serious and do a comedy competition at the Funny Bone. No, take a comedy class at the Funny Bone. And a lady in my office, she said, let me tell you something. You have been funny around here for the last 2 years. And I had told my husband, why this man ain't doing comedy? So, trying to do comedy more and more. So her and her husband sold $250 into me, because I was broke as a joke, to go and do the comedy class. Now, that saved my life too, because I was going through a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
So that gave my mind something to do and stop thinking about the divorce. So I did the competition, and I won it twice.
Wow.
And that's when I started getting serious. In 2010, I met my wife at a comedy club, and she was visiting from Raleigh, North Carolina. And I met her that night. And ever since December the 8th, 2010, we have been together.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
She left Raleigh, moved down here to Virginia, and she has been my partner in recovery, my saving grace. And we have, of course, with Christ, and we have been going full time. And I found someone who gets me. And that's what it's all about. I mean, she actually learned about my PTSD. She actually learned about my triggers. She actually learned about 4 months after we got married, my kids, the 6 and the 8-year-old, when they were 6 and 8, came to live with us. That was trauma to her, because she had just moved and thought it was just going to be me and her. And you see the kids on the weekend. Right. Now you got to be mama. It was trauma for everybody. But the saving grace we always had was Christ, and we always laughed.
Amen.
We laughed 24/7 in our marriage. That was one of the That was one of the most powerful things, because we don't take each other serious. We don't take like I tell folks, we met in a comedy club, but our love is no joke.
Right. I like that.
We don't play. When it comes to us, we part of our marriage ministry now at our church, because people have to learn about blended families. People have to learn about blended families, because that's not what God created. Even though folks say, he was in the blended family with his dad, I ain't gonna get into the Bible stuff. But they said blended families was, you get a blended family, is chaos. It's trauma for the kids when you think about it. Because now they got parents over here, parents over there, and they supposed to come along and get along and like this woman regardless, because it's just so much.
It is, and it is. I don't want to get into it too much either, but I talk to my wife about that all the time, because it's very hard to disciple your children if they're not in the home with you.
Yes.
And I face that conviction and that challenge daily, because my children are in Texas. Oh, okay. And I was there for a big part of their life until I turned away from God, turned away from Christ, went to the world, tried self-medicated myself through the ways of the world. And as I'm being redeemed, as I'm following Christ, of course, I had to come back home in Greenville, North Carolina.
Okay.
Be closer to my parents. They're like 25 minutes away in Chocowinity. So my wife from San Antonio, I met her. I met her in San Antonio, and she came here.
And that's what I'm saying. San Antonio to Greenville.
Exactly. And we drove that twice. So, so
like I'm talking about the culture shock from San Antonio
to Little Greenville, right?
Correct.
And just like your wife, just a blessing that they are. Understanding she loved my kids and they're not hers, and understanding she loved my parents and they're not hers.
Correct. It's difficult.
It's just, and then, like you said, it's not how do you disciple your children if they're not home, or for me, 1,458.4 miles away. It's hard. And I'm trying. I'm trying to learn that. That's where I want a little bit of mentorship as a follower of Christ. Like, hey, and it definitely, when we talk about God in his word, it does talk about how to parent in the home, but it's hard. You very hear people talk about the mixed families.
Correct.
And how do you do that? How do you navigate that? And where is that at in the text? But anyway, I digress, but I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. I am. So, but blessings to you and your family.
That
was nothing but God that?
Nothing but God, bro. We give him all the glory.
Absolutely.
It ain't no way in the world, because I know it was rough on her. I know it was rough on the kids. I know it was rough on them being with me with PTSD, because my younger two, they had me as the therapy dad. Once I started going to therapy and then they started getting older, they had me as I was working on myself.
Right.
My oldest son, he was in high school when I went to Iraq. First time. He was in high school, I went to Iraq the second time. So he really didn't have the therapy PTSD dad.
Right. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? He
Yes.
had the PTSD dad that, was all over the place. And he like, okay, I can't really get him upset. I got to, so he felt like he was fending for himself a lot because I was not emotionally there.
Right.
And I have apologized. I have, so we'll see what God has to say about that, because there's ain't but so much you can do once you have apologized, once you have made amends, once you had understood your ways. Now I'm moving forward.
Right. That sovereignty.
There you go.
Yeah, you got that right. And that's another thing that my wife is always like, what you always say God trying to teach you? To trust him.
Good gracious. I don't like them sometimes, bro. I really don't. I mean,
what you say God always try to teach you, Dad?
Yeah.
To trust him.
Yeah, you ask God for a godly wife, and then they want to throw all that stuff on you.
To trust him. What he teach you, Dad? Trust him.
Trust him.
And I say it like, I gotta trust him. I gotta trust him. I gotta trust him. Yeah, I know. I gotta trust him. That's the lesson he's been teaching me since forever. Is just I gotta trust him.
Right.
And so, listen. This has been a fantastic interview.
Derek,
I'm mad at myself because, and I'm gonna tell you why. And because in the first beginning,
I saw it.
I forgot to hit the button.
I saw it,
and I was like,
I saw it. I said, I don't know how you gonna fix this one, but I saw it.
Lord was just like, hit the button. Let's keep on moving.
I saw it.
And you gotta let them know. And I tell people, my dog is on me, but I tell people, listen, we're finite creatures. We make mistakes, but we keep pressing forward, and it's okay. Because I really wanted that intro, because it was a really good intro to the show, but had to pivot.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry.
No problem. No problem.
I am. That is. I'm a very. I don't want to say pride, but I like having a good tight show. I like being professional.
Of course.
Right. But yeah.
Look, I tell you what, when we get off this, I can show you how we can fix it.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Show you.
Thank you. Absolutely. See, people? That's what recovery is about, baby.
I'll show you how we can fix it.
Real quick, where can they find you? What is your website, YouTube channel? Where can people find Vernard, the Laugh Therapist Hines?
Well, the good thing about it, I am Googleable. Okay, you can find me on all social media at the Laugh Therapist. Okay, the Laugh Therapist. You can go to my website, www.thelaughtherapist.com. There's a lot of information there about me. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everything is the Laugh Therapist.
Awesome.
Twitter.
Awesome.
Everything.
I love it. Now, real quick, I know we had talked off air. You only do private shows?
No.
Okay.
I do comedy shows. I do everything, but I'm clean. Wherever I go.
Yeah,
I know. Wherever I go, I'm clean. I go to I do VA, I do mental health seminars, I speak. Excuse me.
Yeah,
I go to, excuse me. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I go to mental health seminars. Anywhere there's a place where you need uplifting, I'm there. I do everything. Comedy clubs, everything.
Would you go into correction facilities and,
I have done
institutions?
That. Yes, I have done that.
Yes,
until I went there one time and the lady said, "I just want to let you know, if there's a lockdown, we can't leave." Whoa, hold up! You didn't tell me that. That wasn't in the contract.
That wasn't in the contract in the email, man.
So no, but yeah, I definitely, I've done correction workers, awesome. Give them a laugh, because everybody need a laugh. Everybody's work is stressful, life is stressful, and you don't have to have the same boring in service. You come in there, we do a couple of PowerPoint presentations, or you can do that, but then at the end, let's have some laugh therapy.
I love that. Yes, let's have some laugh therapy.
Yes, and I travel, people.
Yes, he does. Yes. I'm trying to catch him. I want to catch him. Yeah. I'm going to catch you. Bump. Forget all that. I'm going to catch you. Yeah, I'm going to go see. I've seen you perform, but I really want to see you get down.
Appreciate it.
Yes, yes. Listen, my brother. Listen, this has been a blessing, and I thank you again for doing this. I thank you for understanding. Yes. The stumble, but we overcame it and we're overcoming. And listen, people, this is what we do here. And I love you so much, and I thank you. And I pray we stay in contact with each other. Sir. Absolutely. And I'll let you know when this comes out, and you can share it. Okay. Absolutely.
We'll do.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Listen,
all right, brother.
You have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
All right. Peace. That's what we do here at Play the Tape. Another great episode. Listen, like I always say, there are going to be ups and downs. I'm still learning this thing as a podcaster. But I didn't let my frustration, I didn't let my mental health of being just destroyed overcome. I didn't. I had faith, and I worked it out, and I pivoted, and I had a great guest in my brother Vernard that understood. With hope comes understanding. With understanding comes love. With love comes peace. And with peace comes recovery. There are people like me and Vernard that would jump in that hole, in that pit with you. Why? Because we know the way out. If you haven't heard it today, I love you. We love you. But most importantly, God loves you. Listen, it's what we do here. Use those resources. 988-211 and 911. 988, a national resource for ending mental health, substance use, or suicide prevention crisis. 211 to find any mental health or substance use or addiction crisis placement. And then, of course, you have 911. And then you have your CIT trained officers. Listen, use your resources. Until next time, this has been Play the Tape. Peace.